Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position along with your favorite beverage to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from the audience of SmithWeekly, including Nick W., Mike P., Gordon S., and Craig S. We have a new guest on the program today. Mr. Marc Prefontaine is with us. Marc is the president and CEO of Angel Wing Metals, a gold and silver focused startup exploration company that is focused on its Reyna exploration project along the Sierra Madre Occidental gold silver belt in Nayarit State, Mexico. Angel Wing Metals is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AWM. Marc, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, Marc, why don't we kick it off here? You're a new guest of ours, a new company. Usually we start off here with just having you tell the audience about your background and experience in this little tricky junior natural resource sector and why you stay in the business.
I am a geologist. I'm in my early 60s now, so I've been doing this and studying this for over 40 years. Got into it because I was in Alberta and wanted a piece of the oil boom. There were no jobs, so ended up in mining and just kept getting jobs. I've lived all over the world for Teck and Hunter Dickinson and some smaller companies. And 20 years ago, I ventured into taking on my first junior company, which was Grade Resources. Grade started at a $5 million market cap, had a couple of old properties, and I put together a land position in northern Mexico called the La India Project, which 8 years later, Agnico Eagle bought us for $275 million. And we took it from 6 rocks in my backpack to about 1.25 million ounces open pit heap leach. Less than a year, Agnico had it in production. It's been producing 100,000 ounces a year for the last 11 years. And it's sad to say, it's almost time flies. They're starting to wind the project down. So that was my first venture. And I might mention during that, I only raised a total of, from taking it from grassroots and over a course of 8 years, I only raised $26 million. And with that money, drilled over 550 holes and did a full pre-feasibility, brought it through discovery and full pre-feasibility. So things have gotten more expensive, and my jaw kind of drops at prices now. But I did all that for 26 million bucks and sold it for 275 million at 280 a share. When I took it over, it was about 3 cents a share. Took a bit of time searching, a few board positions, and then I co-founded Orla Mining with a fellow by the name of John Graham, who's Trinity Partners, and Hans Smith and Pierre Lassonde, and my former chairman at Grade, Rich Hall, and a few others. And that was a $5 million shell. Spent 2 years looking for projects. We ended up sadly picking up one, but it got us going in Panama. And then, of course, we bought Camino Rojo from Goldcorp, and that mine has been in production for 2 years. Again, when I left, wanted to get a mine developer in there and build it. So I exited stage left, and they brought in a great CEO. So we took that one from a $5 million market cap. I think it was about 220, 240 market cap when I left, and now it's $1.5 billion market cap. Again, took a bit of time searching for the right thing. I seem to have had good luck in Mexico. I like Mexico. So Cal Everett kind of approached me, and I flew down and took a look at the La Reyna project. Gold, potential open pit, just like my other two companies and projects. And there was a really, there's Cal involved, which is exciting. Some really good people on the board, very good people on the board. And then there's a great geological team that they'd put together down there that's doing good work. The team of geologists down there discovered Anna Paula with, I can't remember the name of the original company. It's with Heliostar now. And so we have this project. This is as green as it gets. I'm having a bit of project envy when I start talking to people with big advanced projects like I used to have. This one is as grassroots as it gets. There's never been a drill hole. We have soil anomalies, surface showings, and I think we're just about ready to go drill it. So again, this one was more expensive. I think it was a 9 million market cap when I took it over and put my money in. But we should be ready to drill pretty soon, I think. So we'll see if I can do it a third time lucky.
And I appreciate you covering this off because I think it's important for the audience to take a look at those other companies you mentioned and some of the successes you've had. And then, of course, Cal, quite successful himself and very, very savvy with respect to the market and some of these companies, and obviously picking out some pretty dang good targets that result in some pretty nice deposits we've seen as well. So very excited to talk to you a little bit more about the project details in a moment. But I want to have you, given your experience, maybe come back here and talk to us about the broad junior gold silver sector for a moment. Any thoughts here as far as sentiment? It's been a long road. People are pretty beat up. The current prices in the junior segment, and where you think good value is really placed given the current conditions for the juniors.
At my age, I've been through this cycle so many darn times. It's not for the faint of heart working in this business or being a geologist. I guess right now, the majors and the gold producers, their prices are deflated. And so that translates down to us. I guess with 5% interest rates, why would you buy a gold stock when you can buy a GIC or invest your money at 5%? So we have that competition. We have the crypto competition, and I don't know. It's just a cycle that I guess I'm old enough, and now I don't get over emotional about it. It is what it is, and it's going to turn. We had signs of it not that long ago, and for me, I like gold, and gold prices are high. Eventually, one would think people want to invest. There's a demand for owning gold stocks. So uh, it's tough out there. It's money isn't. You're just watching people raising money at cheap prices. That seems to be the way it's been for quite a while, and we'll just see it. But you know what? If you just look, the market still loves a good drill hole. Boy, oh boy, every once in a while we hear of a good drill hole and a 300% gain in the stocks. They don't stay up there, but the market loves a good drill hole. So there's still an interest in this.
It sure does. And there should be interest because obviously we're using the minerals that are coming out of these, hopefully to be one day economic and productive assets. You started in a little bit here, but on the history of the company and overview, but why don't you just give us a quick history, how you came across this specific vehicle, Angel Wing, and how that package was put together. Obviously, the focus now is on La Reyna in Mexico, but just talk about how this was structured, why you came on board. This has been overhauled. Tell us a little bit about that.
One of the people Cal worked with for years at Liberty Pilot is his main geologist. Her husband was assembling a land package that he knew of in Mexico, just south of Mazatlan, but in Nayarit State. Really easy access. And Cal caught wind of it, heard about it, and liked it, and said, "Oh, geez, we should put this in a junior." Cal had retired from Liberty. It was while he was taking his sabbatical there up till a few months ago. And I think Cal has always wanted to be involved with a grassroots discovery. So for some reason, he ended up putting it into Angel Wing, which was formerly Hunter Exploration. It was a shelf they were looking for and had the right people he wanted and a decent enough share structure. So that's where it ended up. And so this is not something I put together. This is something other people put together. So they had put together an exploration team, and we're working on surface exploration. There's all kinds of veins, a huge alteration system with showings everywhere, and it just never has been drilled. It was parts of it were held by juniors in the past, but we just don't see any history of any drilling or real drilling. So I heard about it because I know Cal. Cal was a big investor in grade, and he's also good friends with a fellow Murray John, who's the chairman of Prime Mining, which has a project just north of there. And I happen to sit on the board of Prime for almost 5 years with Murray now. And the people all knew that I was out looking for my next job and thought this might interest me. So we got on a Zoom call with Cal, and I ended up flying down to Mexico, looking at it, and signed on, put a bunch of money into it, and here we go. So we're almost at the drill ready stage to go do the first phase of drilling.
I want to come back to drill targets and those things in just a moment, but we'll stay on cap structure for a moment and then talk a little bit about people. So on the cap structure here, Marc, talk about where we are with shares outstanding, cash on hand, and maybe talk about where that gets you here with the drill program, and then major shareholders.
Sure. Okay. One thing I pushed for to join was to roll the shares back a bit because it's so grassroots. So we now have 67 million shares out. So unfortunately not 25 million, but 67 million we can work with. We have 2 million cash after doing almost a full year of exploration. Drilling will cost about, I'm saying the first phase, about 1.1 million is what my budget is. So, in reality, 1.5. So I would say we do have enough money to drill, but if the market picks up, I sure would like to put a bit of buffer money in there, not too much. You could with Orla, we did big acquisitions, so there were big financings. With grade, all my financings were small, and that's why I only needed 26 million. So so we'll if the next raise we do will be enough money to do our work, but I don't need to go out with cheap 10-20 cent share prices and put 50 million bucks in the bank and blow everybody up.
I think that's good. That covers off highlights on where we look with as far as equity financing in the future, so folks can understand that and stay tuned. Also, if you don't mind, where you can on this, I know some of it's confidential, but major shareholders at this point.
I would say Cal, myself, there's a couple of funds in there, Merck and Gold 2000. There's some others. And then I would say that the shareholder base is people that are very close business associates with myself, Cal especially, Marc Sontrup in Toronto, who's on our board. He is the PM of Interboard. So the stock, you can see it doesn't trade that much, and that's because the shares are in very close hands.
With that, you mentioned a few names there. Maybe just talk a little bit about your support team, Marc. Obviously, you're the leader here, and you have quite a cast of characters that are quite supportive and know each other, but maybe just highlight a few of the key people that are helping you out.
Let's start with the board. Cal, of course. Cal is a high energy mover and shaker, as anybody in the junior game knows, especially in Vancouver and Toronto. Then you have Alex Marcotte, who's a VP at Cisco, engineering geologist, very competent person, very pragmatic. Yeah, Marc Sontrup, who's a PM at Interward, knows the finance game and all the players, and then Mark Santarosa, who has a daily newsletter. He's the VP Corporate Development of Orion, accounting and banking background, analyst background. So a small, lean, mean, very experienced board that are actually wonderful to work with. And then on the site, our country manager, or, the person that runs it all is a geologist lady by the name of Jillian Curville. Very experienced, was involved with a lot of discoveries. She's been down living in Mexico for over 30 years and worked for Teck, was involved with, the discoveries of San Nicolas. I can never remember the name of the project that Torex has, that they sold that to Torex. And then on her own, she and a couple of other senior geologists, Alfredo and Omar, I'll just leave it at that. The three of them were a team, and we're had some financing, working kind of with a fund and a shell that Lundin owned a lot of, and they ended up with a package of ground that I think was part of the Teck package, and discovered Ana Paula, which is, I can't remember how big it is, 1.5 million ounces. And that was a grassroots discovery. So everybody has got a lot of experience, and of course, then we have some young people that we're grooming. We've all done it before. We all like the project. We'll see what happens. It's never been drilled, so.
Good for you for picking up some younger folks, because I think that wisdom transfer and just competency in the mining sector, energy sector completely is really down substantially. How many engineers are we seeing come out that are mine engineers
Yeah,
from schools?
and yeah, and keep in mind, we're still a very small project, so it's a very small staff. We haven't built up an army. You'd need a couple of drill programs with a lot of success before you really started staffing up. Especially with me trying to mine the purse strings, I'm pretty tight.
Absolutely, Marc. Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit about, I'd like to hear from you, just your overall take. I mean, you're very experienced in Mexico. I'd like to have you cover off some of your thoughts related to some of the natural resource related regulations that have been changing there, and just your ability and confidence level to deal with Mexico, to not only get along with the government bureaucracy that we have there, but also, how this translates with your experience into success for the company, Marc.
About 3 hours after I signed the contract and we put the press release out on Angel Wings, AMLO, the president, I'll just refer to him, Obras Obrador, just refer to him as AMLO. They put out they were changing the mining laws. So Murphy's Law, I think I would have waited a couple of weeks before signing it. That come out first. So Mexico is a mining country with a strong background in mining, and people like mining. It's been good for their economy and they get good jobs. So you have that history there. They brought out new mining laws that are a little adversarial. Some of the stuff makes sense, some of it doesn't. One thing they did is we'll just stick to that first. It just makes permitting a little more stringent. Although the permitting in Mexico, to permit a mine, you go through the same processes as you would in Canada. Of course, a little more money involved and stuff like that. Look, there it's all part and parcel there, but there's some stuff in there that I'm just not going to get into. And the odds are the Supreme Court is going to throw it out. And one of the things is, if you have titled concessions, your title is secure, but to expand on your ground, it's going to get tougher. There's concession applications. So if somebody wants to go stake some ground, the first thing they do is, it's kind of a semi paper staking land thing. You submit your claim outlined to the Ministry of Mines, and they'll issue a piece of paper that, okay, you have a concession application, so nobody can go over top of you. And it used to be a 60-day process to have that application turned into a full title concession. AMLO boasts he has not turned an application into a full title concession through his full, which will coming up on 5-year term. And as a matter of fact, the previous president hadn't titled a concession in 3 years. So they've said they're throwing them all out. But what's happening now in the courts, and it's happening with us too, is federal judges are saying that's unconstitutional, that you can't revoke. If you've given something, you just can't take it back. So it's just kind of a mixed up time down there where you have the federal judges, companies we did the same. You file appeals on your untitled and your titled concessions, and federal judges are ruling in our favors that we're all under the old mining law. The governments can, of course, keep appealing it and all that, but it sounds like it's all in front of the Supreme Court now that may turn it down. Now, the Supreme Court has had a tradition. AMLO has done this with energy, with other things, where he's brought in a bunch of kind of knee-jerk new laws that he gets arm twisted through the Senate, and then it's happened on most of the stuff he's done. The Supreme Court throws it out, and that may happen. And then you have, of course, there's an election, presidential election in July, so his one term is up, and so he will exit stage left. They have their election in July, and then they turn over the power in the government's change in December. I'm not saying, you know, a couple of things in his new mining law make perfectly good sense, and people would roll in their graves that maybe I say that, but there's some stupid stuff, but there's some good stuff, and it just needs to be hashed out. Supreme Court may throw it all out, and there'll be a new government in December. Now, the new government will probably be more aligned with AMLO than, say, the old days of Calderon and Vicente Fox. So I think just stay tuned. So I think what we've done, and Cal is really good about that, is we monitor it. We're able to work. I've got all my drill permits. Until finality has been happening, there's no use reacting to anything. We do legally what we need to do and have been successful in just making sure that we and our shareholders are protected and the ground's protected. But this is all going to play out, and I think it's just a matter of not overreacting to it all, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. I mean, very good points. And I think your approach to this is protect the grounds to the best of your ability is key here. Obviously, you guys aren't near as impacted as some of these operators that are there with productive assets. But I think your approach is right because there's still a lot of unknowns about this. Everybody's still confused, and there hasn't really been anything. Well, there is a precedence, but there'll be some other decisions coming to reinforce how this goes. And let's be honest, you take mining away from Mexico, I'm sorry, this is going down the toilet.
Yeah, it's overwhelming what a mining country it is, and there's
Absolutely.
very good qualified people, and boy, those people don't want to end their livelihoods either. Let me tell you.
Oh, for sure. It's like cutting off at least one leg if you cut this out, and not only mention the loss of wealth for the country and economics. I mean, again,
Yeah.
people like to hang their hat on environmental concerns and all this crap, and the reality is you can mine responsibly. We've seen it done. Of course, there's always a bad apple in the barrel sometimes, but that happens. And
In Mexico, the bad apples are usually the small little, couple of local Mexican people that put something together, don't fully permit it properly, and don't have the money and resources to fully support it. It's there's always, yeah, after Mount Poly, I'm never going to say that a Canadian mining company is above accidents and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, there's a certain standard of care and a standard of quality, I suppose, and how you conduct these businesses for sure. And people just need to get back to the basics and understand that people have been trying to do their best with respect to these efforts. Okay, let's talk, Lorena. I want to get right into the project here now because I know that's an exciting part that you want to discuss here. With the exploration program that you mentioned, that's coming up. Maybe you can give us a flavor as to when you think that'll kick off, Marc, and then how those initial exploration targets were selected. I mean, what did you see that was compelling, and how did you guys select those targets for the first drill program?
The program has been ongoing. There is, ever since I've joined, there's been at least a dozen people in the field collecting soil samples, mapping, and sampling for the past 12 months exactly. So, and there's been a couple of $1 million spent on that. So, although we haven't been making news, I put out an update a couple of weeks ago. Exploration is ongoing. It's just that we don't have drills turning, that you're continuously announcing stuff. So what I would say is what we saw and what we're focused on is, and it covers a big part of the claims. It's an 11,000 hectare property. Uh, there is a there's a there's a 10 by 10 kilometer alteration zone in the right Sierra Madre volcanics, and it's prominent. You can see it. It's just like when I walked on La India, what you noticed first was this big alteration system. And then you would see workings and go, geez, there's gold there. And La India was a little different in that it was only 10 kilometers from Mulattoes, so, and a different style of mineralization. But this one is kind of the same sort of thing. It's a big alteration system with countless veins, and there's workings everywhere. And so what you do is we're focused on that area. So what I sort of, and I didn't need to tell these geologists, they're good. What we liked was there's areas where there's a bunch of subparallel veins, because the veins are anywhere from a half meter, sometimes 5 meters wide, but give them a couple of meters wide. So a 2 meter wide vein, yeah, you don't, you're not going to build tons quickly on that. But if you have 6 of them running parallel, and they all have various gold grades and stuff like that, and so old workings, what we want to do is we've picked a few areas. We're going to take a drill, we're going to drill an angled hole and cut across, say, 4 or 6 veins. And what I'm hoping for is, I know we'll get gold in the veins, but what I'm hoping for is in between the veins, there's more veinlets or veins that we don't see on surface, or some disseminated mineralization in the alteration that carries, so that rather than having 4 separate 2 meters at 5 gram intercepts, we get, call it 80 meters at 1.7, 2.5 grams. That's the target. I'm looking on our first drill pass for bulk mineable open pit targets. And we have several areas and lots of space. We have the veins. There's people that have been chipping away at them at surface or in small tunnels forever. That's the target. I guess I could go on and on about the chlorite, the mineralogy and this and that, but the bottom line is that's what we're chasing. Is we're going to aim the drill and try to drill and get ore grade over mining width. And it's 1 in 5,000 projects turns into a mine. The odds are probably higher now, but that's what they were when I was doing my master's at Queens years ago. So
Yeah.
like I say, I could go on, and I'm probably I'm not the best promoter, but that's how I see it. Is there's 14 areas of workings on these claims, and we're going to pick a few of these areas. We just finished a little ground geophysics. I actually need to see the results of that. And we're going to plan out a drill program in the next few weeks and then just decide when to do it.
Okay, that's good. And I like the mention there about the 1 in 5,000. The odds are definitely against us, but we can improve those odds with a good team and with some good experience, I think. And
Yeah,
obviously with prospective ground, obviously that's a given. If you have a good management team, you're probably going to get the
yeah.
right ground.
If you talk to Cal, the odds, because we're involved, he's involved, the odds are 1-1. But that's
I like that. Yeah, Kel's great. Okay, just expand a little bit more. You've dealt with Mexico a lot. You know the players involved. You've looked at, you know the mines, you know the deposits in Mexico. You've seen this project. You've spent time on it. Obviously, you agreed to come on board with what Cal has put together here and lead this. Two things. What's the potential here? It obviously, I think you guys were thinking it could be big, but what's the potential reality? And then also, what do you think the time frame is to demonstrate some of that potential? Is it something that's going to happen over the next 3 years? What do you see on time frame and potential?
yeah. Look, we're going to drill within the next 4 months, if not the next 2 months. From there, hopefully we get some intercepts and then go into a multiple drill program. The ground is right. The Pan American Highway goes right through the edge of the ground. It's very easy access. There's nobody living on top of it. By the way, we have enough drill pads and drill areas permitted that we could drill with multiple rigs for the next 4 years. We're fully permitted. We've done all of our legwork on that. What we're after is, a million plus open biddable target. So we'll go drill. I'm optimistic that we'll come up with some of these areas. We'll get some holes that say, okay, now we can show investors we're onto something. Let's get at it with 2 or 3 drills and just methodically move up. If the gold is there, this could move quickly. People will talk. There's some, potentially some deeper porphyry targets and all that. We'll sneak a peek at those when the money's right. But right now, to drill across those subparallel vein areas to see if we can come up with a bulk mineable target. I've done it a couple of times before. I have a good sense of what it takes. I like the alteration. I like the showings. After 3 years sitting in the background saying, no, I jumped into this one. I'm not going to make any promises because it's just so early that it could go either way. But I don't know. I had a good feeling walking around the ground, and that's why I signed on. 40 years of my geological gut, and always in the back of my mind, everything I've ever done, and people have whispered, and I've said it is, let's not kid ourselves. So
I know I like that approach. No promises, and this is very super high risk. Exploration, complete greenfield, as you said.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
not much there. There's no historic data, so here we are. So yeah, looking
yeah,
forward to seeing that progress.
yeah. And important to bear in mind, you're dealing with a $9 million company. You're not dealing with $100 million company saying, we're going to go on do our first drill program. So the risk return can be good, but it's exploration, it's risk.
Yeah, it doesn't get any riskier than this for sure. Talk just briefly too as well, Marc. I know this is an area that you've had to deal with in past ventures, but I know this is early stage. Of course, this company is very small, but overall community efforts, this is important, always has been, and people who know how to do it, it's second nature to them. But just talk about that. Any comments on community efforts at this point?
So we do have surface agreements with all the communities we need. We have a full-time ESG person. So I didn't come out boasting about it because the number one rule in life, no matter where you are, is treat people with dignity and respect. We have a full-time community relations person, and this person was in place, hired by Jillian and Alfredo, and of course supported by the directors long before I showed up, months before I showed up. When I go down there, one of the first things I do is sit down with them. Same as I sit on the board of Prime Mining. They get a weekly report and a monthly report, and at the top is health, safety, community before you even read the exploration results. And I'm here talking about our exploration potential, but it's the first question I ask the people down there. Everything okay? Everybody safe? The community guys out there talking to people. Right now, we're just walking around. We're just people walking around with a little shovel or a geological rock hammer. So there's no machinery out there creating any disturbance, but we'll let them know. And you need to keep the people that live or have an interest in the surface, you need to keep them in the loop the whole way through. If you do that, odds are, Landia was able to be developed. A big part of Agnico buying us, it was a small acquisition for them, but I had the surface under control. Orla, the change of land use came shortly after I left. That was the first thing we did is when we announced that we had acquired from Goldcorp Camino Rojo. It happened during the day. It happened to be our AGM that day, I think, too, board meeting. I hopped on a plane and did a red eye into Zacatecas, and the press release came out at, say, 9 a.m. Toronto time. I was standing in front of the community. 130 people attended that meeting at 10 a.m. in Mexico. So you just gotta treat people with dignity and respect, and you're gonna have your challenges. You're gonna have people that ardently expose. So that, yeah, it's huge. But I'm hoping by now a lot of it's second nature to me.
Yeah, always an important area to make sure you have covered very well, and growing in importance, as you and I discussed, with outside influencers. It continues to be very important to make sure
Yeah.
that this work is done properly to educate people properly and not have them misled. So I appreciate your comments on that. Just back to broad company strategy, Marc, maybe look out 5 years or whatever it is for us. I have a very good feeling that this company, if successful, would look to sell off, be taken over, and move on. But maybe there's a small part of the company that maybe wants to bring an asset into production and move that way. But just talk about how you see the ultimate exit strategy for you in this company.
You keep moving a project forward. That was our philosophy at Grade, and something I learned from Rich Hall, who has mentored me and chaired Grade. He was the CEO of Metallica. You keep moving the project forward, and if somebody happens to make an offer you can't refuse, you exit. That's what happened at Grade, but we were fully ready to staff and build it. We weren't at that stage yet. And in Orla, made the acquisition, and Chuck Jeunesse and Pierre Lassonde, their mission was to make Orla a mid-tier producer. Orla moved forward and got built. And with that came changes to the team from exploration focus to producers and operators. We'll do the same thing with this one. We're going to move that project forward. Look, if for some reason exploration wise it doesn't pan out, I can't think of anybody better than Cal to help me find a plan B project. So I've put money into it. I've taken my friends and colleagues' money. I'm not going anywhere. So hopefully it just turns into a great exploration success and you just keep moving it forward, and you'll staff and change accordingly. Like in 5 years' time, Cal will be well into his 70s. I'll be in my late 60s. So there's, if this thing's successful and moving that way, we need a succession plan. But right now, we're a $9 million junior that hasn't drilled a hole. And so we have plenty of expertise and knowledge. We'll take it one step at a time.
Well said. Excellent. Well, Marc, let's leave it there. I really appreciate your time. Final two questions before we go. The first one, for potential investors who are listening in here, the company has a market capitalization today of about 8 million Canadian dollars. Why should Angel Wing Metals be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors portfolio at this stage?
The people involved. You have a good project. It's as high risk as it gets, but it's an $8 million valuation. If part of your investment strategy is to invest in a few of these high risk juniors, this is a good one. Because, two, with the people involved, we have the experience, we know how to move the project forward. We think and hope we know where to put the drill holes. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, we're not going to give up. We just keep moving forward. These things take time, but at this valuation, if part of your strategy is investing in these cheap, high risk juniors, do it. Now, don't put all your money into it. That's for sure. I wouldn't, and I don't. I put a lot of money, a fair sum of my personal money into this, but money I can afford to lose. And as the next financings go, I'll put more in.
Really, that speaks volumes to us on how you guys approach this, and I appreciate your brief comments on why folks should consider this. Marc, what is the best way for interested parties to contact the company at this point?
If you look at any press release or on the website, my email is there, mprefontaine@angelwingmetals.com. If you just click on any press release on the site, it should be there. I need to, admittedly, need to get an info and get somebody part-time to just help me monitor things a little bit. It's been pretty quiet, so people have been able to find me, and I don't spend any money on corporate. Any presence is in Mexico. I rent an office for $1,200 a month downtown, and I think I can run it till it's about a $250 million market cap out of the one room.
Well, Marc, really appreciate the introduction here. Looking forward to seeing things progress at the company, and best of luck with the upcoming exploration work. Thank you again for the
Yeah, well,
time.
thank you very much for the opportunity. It's really kind of you to not knowing me before and such an early stage company. I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to chat with you.